I'll be introducing Dr. Saleem Shaik. Dr. Saleem is a scientist with a background in both industry and academia, specializing in clinical immunology work involved in drug development and clinical assessment. With a career spanning over a decade, Dr. Saleem has demonstrated expertise in detecting and elucidating mechanisms of action that enhance the quality of biotherapeutics. His academic research delved into understanding the genetic and immunological factors underlying susceptibility to influenza and other infections, resulting in several publications in prestigious journals such as the Journal of Infectious Diseases and Cellular Immunology. Currently, as an associate director at Takeda in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Dr. Saleem oversees bioanalytical strategies and the development. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Saleem Sheikh.
Hi, everyone. I am Saleem, and thank you for inviting for this presentation. And this presentation I made to the level of school or early graduate students. So please don't compare with the presentations by Dr. Shingo. It's excellent presentation, Dr. Shingo. You have innovative ideas and experimental results, but I made very low level of I think at the basic level of immunology and vaccine types and what's the history of vaccines so that you understand, and when you get the vaccine, what's the mechanism and something like that. In the course of my presentation, I will also go through the journey of the vaccine development, starting from the Edward Jenner's innovation for the smallpox vaccine to the current vaccine that everyone talks about on the mRNA-based COVID vaccine. So the presentation I'm going to have is like what's a vaccine, how it is defined, and what are the types of vaccine manufactured based, and what's the mechanism, how it improves our immunological pathways, and what is the transformative impact on global health. And finally, I'll talk about the global challenges that vaccination strategies has facing, and also from the developing new pathogens. So I would like to ask the students, what's vaccine? Anybody? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Cures the disease, basically. Yeah. So in a scientific way, it improves our immunological defense to defend the infective pathogen. And if you see the content of the vaccine, it has the active ingredients, has the antigen or the product that is coming from the pathogen itself, or similar to the pathogen. Either it's protein, or it's a genetic material, or it's a surface material, or something. So along with that, it also has some additional components that improves your immunity. They're called as adjuvant. So basically the active adjuvant, the active component is from the pathogen itself. And then some of the extra ingredients that can protect those ingredients like adjuvant, antibiotics, and also the stabilizers. So these helps those products, the active ingredient products to stabilize during transport or during storage, and also improves the mechanism of immunity. Okay. And based on the substance or the antigen, the product that is coming from the pathogen, the vaccine has been classified into various types. For example, sometimes we take whole pathogen itself and we inactivate the active ingredients of the pathogen, or the particles on the pathogen that causes the infection in human, we make it inactive and then use it in the vaccine. Sometimes we take only some products of the pathogen, like protein or the DNA. For example, the polysaccharide-based pneumococcal vaccine is just made up of the surface coat material of the bacteria, which is a polysaccharide. And the recent vaccine that everyone talks about is the COVID vaccine. It has only the genetic material, the RNA, the synthesized commercially based on the COVID RNA. So based on that, the vaccine has been classified. This is better. You need to have some the definition of the vaccine based on the preparation attenuated vaccine or inactivated vaccine or the recombinant vaccine or the nucleic acid based vaccine. So the attenuated vaccines are the weakened form of pathogen without causing disease. So basically what they do is they take the pathogen and they culture or they multiply the pathogen in vitro or in animals. In vitro means they use the cell cultures, either from kidney based or from the human culture. They multiply those pathogens. For example, the smallpox vaccine. So they infect those virus into the cell culture for 40 to 50 generations. So what happens after generation? Its infective potency reduces. That means it doesn't cause the disease, but it causes the generation of immunity. So that's how they use it. It's called as attenuated or in the form of inactivated. So for example, polio, at the early stages of everyone takes the polio vaccine. The virus, the surface of the virus gets inactivated by chemicals like formaldehyde. So when you add some chemicals, so the surface of the pathogen like virus gets inactivated, but it improves our immunity. So those are all inactivated vaccine. And the recombinant vaccine is the big area where many vaccines has been manufactured and produced. You take either protein material and add with or conjugate with some other protein. For example, the hepatitis vaccine or the pneumococcal based vaccine. They take the pneumococcal based vaccine, the carbohydrates of the bacteria, they conjugate with the toxin of the diphtheria bacterium toxin. So the toxin is not toxic as such. They take the inactive portion of the toxin and then conjugate with bacterial polysaccharide so that it happens like it produces the antibodies towards the pneumococcal bacteria. And nucleic acid based vaccine, as I said in the previous slide, the mRNA of the COVID virus was taken and vaccine is prepared, similar to that malaria vaccine also. So if you see the history of the journey of the vaccine development, it started early like 1800s. At that time, there was no idea of what is the pathogen structure, what is the immunological mechanism, what are the nucleic acids causing disease. But still, the scientists tried to develop the immunological resistance for the pathogen. The great discovery started from the Edward Jenner, where he first discovered the smallpox virus is causing the disease. But similar to that, the cowpox resistance can develop the immunity. I'm going to tell the story of that in the next slides. But starting from the 1800 to 2020, there has been tremendous change in manufacturing of or the discovery of the vaccines. So the early period where they have not used the recombinants or any novel technology we call as early developments, but there was a great impact by the vaccinations, like for example, the smallpox vaccine and also the tetanus vaccine, TB vaccine, and the influenza vaccine. In late 1960s, because of the influenza, there was a big impact on human health. Millions of people saved because of that. And then golden age of vaccine was, or we call them at the age of like 1950 to 1980, because so many like diseases has been reduced because of the vaccines. So here is the chart I'm showing up just to have some idea. Everyone, when they go to the school or any daycares, they need to have the vaccination. So here you see at the first month or second month or third month, different vaccines have been listed. So if you consider the first birthday, at the 12 months or when you are celebrating first birthday, you have been poked at least 12 times. Do you know that? You have been poked with a vaccine at this your shoulder or your thigh. So those vaccines are causing the resistance to different diseases. When you go to the school at the age of 6 or 5, you have been like you might have been poked with almost like 20 to 25 vaccines. This is the recommended schedule. Of course, there are some excuses with some reasons, but technically recommended vaccines is like almost 20 to 25. Is it really needed? The question is it really like, do we need all the vaccines that we have? Let's see the table here, the impact of vaccines that have been saved because of the hospitalization and the vaccinations. So if you see here, the tetanus and the polio, and the hepatitis, the pneumococcal, rotavirus, all these, here is the list of the hospitalization number that recommended that was recorded by the CDC, and how many people have been saved from the deaths. So the table shows that it here that because of the vaccination, there are more than million people have been saved. Well, again, this is the same slide I'm showing up here. Based on the preparation of the vaccine, the inactivated vaccine or the attenuated vaccine or subunit vaccine, I'm going to show different types of vaccines. There are a big list of vaccine. We don't need to worry about that, memorize this. But if you see the way of route of administration, there are different types of administration, either subcutaneous or oral or the intramuscular. So the reason for that is just to remember the scientific way. When you administrate the oral or the intramuscular or the subcutaneous, the vaccine antigens, they induce the immunity in a different pathways, either antibody pathways or cellular pathways. So I'll skip some of those. So here is one of the milestones of the vaccine development I'm going to show, like I said. The first vaccine developed by Edward Jenner, so where he took the pus from the cowpox lesions from a milkmaid that he was watching her, and then he took the lesions from the pus, and then he inoculated a 8-year-old boy, and then his name is Philip, I think. And then he inoculated to the shoulder, and then that boy got resistance to the smallpox vaccine. This is the stepping stone, golden time when he observed that the antibodies or the serum or the pus that comes from cowpox is giving resistance to the smallpox vaccine. So after that idea, it spread to many other diseases. Later on, Louis Pasteur also took the rabies virus. He inoculated to or he injected that virus to the rabbit, and then he collected the serum from the animal, and then he tried to look for the resistance, and it worked out. So basically, the observation and the experiments succeeded to develop the vaccines at that time. If you see here, the later on, they spread the development of vaccine to the animals. For example, the diphtheria vaccine in 1920s, the bacterium was inoculated to or injected to the horse, and then the serum was collected, and then that was used as the vaccine. Later on, the Salk and Sabin vaccine, the polio vaccine, which is really great impact having from all over the world. Now polio has been eradicated 99%. I think only a fraction of small areas has been left over, but otherwise, because of their discovery. Here, the technology has improved for the vaccine development from animals to cell culture. So the polio virus was cultured in the MDCK cell culture. These are the kidney, the dog kidneys cell culture. And then after passing those several generations, those were inactivated using chemicals so that the virus cannot cause the disease, but can improve the immunity. So when they injected, it has the resistance both on antibody and the cell-based like T cells. I'm going to come back with what is T cell and B cells in the next slides. But after that, the development of vaccines happened with the recombinant and with the modern technology. So here is the slide I want to share with the students. So how vaccine works. So how vaccine improves our immune system. Before I tell the mechanism of the vaccine, I want to share that the system, human system has various circulatory system or immune system and the skeletal system, digestive system like that. But the immune system is very profound classical system where you have different types of cells and each cell performs its own function. For example, here you see here the bone marrow where there is a generation of the cells happens. The mesenchymal stem cells produce the precursors of those immune cells. Once they generate from the bone marrow, they travel and they get trained in the centers, training centers like you have what do you call the military training centers. They recruit the students or from the public people and they give the training and then they send to the war zone or something. So our immune system is typically like that. So the cells produced from the bone marrow, they migrate to the spleen, tonsils, thymus, and lymph nodes. and then they get the exposure of the different pathogens or different infective organisms, and then they change the structure. For example, the T cells, they are called as thymus cells, and macrophages, natural killer cells, and B cells. Every cell has its own function and phenotypic character. Like if you compare with the country security system, our security system has a different departments. Like we have FBI, we have a patrolling police, we have local police, we have CIDs. Everyone, they do some specific job to protect the country. So similar to that, the immune system has a specific category of cells who are performing the specific mechanism to protect our body. It's a beautiful system that God has provided us that such system. So let's see how it works when vaccine gets administered to us. Usually it is given to the muscular, for example. The layer below the muscular layer has different type of cells, immune cells, like Langerhans cells, macrophages, or natural killer cells. When they get exposed or get contact with the vaccine antigens, like I said, vaccine antigens are like different components, right? Either pathogen antigen, adjuvants, and other things. When they come in contact with those particles, they capture it, and then the process and the present to the other cells. They teach the or they give signals to other cells like T cells. Here I show small cells. They're called monocytes or basophils or the macrophages. But majorly, they send the signals saying that, okay, let's start active and produce the chemicals or cytokines that can kill the pathogen. So once the defender cells like macrophages or APCs, we call antigen presenting cell, capture the antigen from the particles from the vaccine, they present to the T cells. And then T cells, they process it and then modify it and make it a very specific antibodies for that particles. They call as the B cells. Here you see the mechanism of the B cells. They produce the antibodies, and also some of the cells changes to memory cells. For example, if you remember that you might have taken your vaccine like polio or DTaP vaccine very early stages of like 4 years or 3 years before you go to the school. But still, when you get the pathogen, get exposure, you have the resistance. That is because some of the immune cells, like a B memory cells, they hide and watch. They hide and watch, and then whenever they get exposed to the second time to the pathogen, they get amplify or activate and produce antibodies and kill the pathogen. So they're called as a memory B cells. So we have T cells, we have antigen presenting cell, we have B cells and antibodies. These are all the part of the immune system. And finally, what are the challenges that we get in the vaccine? So vaccine hesitancy, public skepticism, like, okay, there are some reasons like, okay, we don't want COVID vaccine. Definitely, that's reasonable to say that because of the genetic material can get incorporated in our genome and may cause something. So, but there is a logical information that we need to have, or whether it's really the information is going to them or not. So that's a challenge, that vaccine strategy is not there still for the developing countries especially. And then global inequity in vaccine access. So the developing nations may not have proper transport, proper storage, or proper technical people that can administer the vaccine. And also the emerging diseases like COVID vaccine is one of the challenging. In 4 years back, no one has the idea what's the pathogen, how to produce the vaccine. So it is the scientists, the great discoveries and the technology made us, at least we don't know sure like it is working or not, but because the data shows that the vaccination caused the reduction in the number of deaths in the COVID. So that's the way we have to inform the people, at least for the developing countries. And of course, for the developing cost and the time is huge, different from the countries like the USA and other African countries. So the global vaccination has a big challenge to reach there. So finally, thank you for organizers to invite me here, but I can share most of the questions rather than presenting all the details. It's a huge area, so I don't want to make it too elaborate, but I'm happy to answer students for any immunological or vaccine strategies or scientific questions, because I'm basically a scientist, so I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for a wonderful presentation. May you have a space for one or two questions?
So what is my question?
Yes. Let's answer the first online question. What is the future for vaccine?
Yeah.
Someone is asking online, what is the future application for vaccine?
Future application is definitely it is going towards the cell therapy. In the
question usually is what is the future of vaccine development under the forthcoming administration?
I think it's a very thoughtful question, definitely. I'm not the right person to ask. That is purely administrative and political, I believe. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for wonderful presentation. It was very COVID vaccine initially came in, there were a lot of propaganda, a lot of benefits. So it's nothing really studies what needed to actually do what there is any concern on mRNA-based vaccines?
Absolutely.
And number two, what other diseases can go on the same track, for example?
Yeah. So absolutely, that's a big concern for even for the scientific group and also for the non-scientific group, because the mechanism of RNA-based vaccine is it gets incorporated in the genome or the DNA of the immune cells, and it produces the antigen or the resistance to that. That's how. So basically, what I'm saying is the vaccine component is going and sitting in your genome, and nobody knows what happens in the future, like say for example after 20 years or 30 years. Technically the government rules are you need to have proper logical data to prove that it doesn't happen. But in terms of COVID vaccine, there was no time and no knowledge to understand the consequences of the vaccine. There was no option for people. I think most of the governments, I think not most, all the government have approved to get the COVID vaccine because the data shows that it produces the antibodies, but the consequences nobody knows, especially for the children, like the early age of the generation, like 5 years or before their germline gets it's established. If it is incorporated in that, whether it causes any reproductive challenges or any the next generation challenges, we don't know about that. So I think at least the US government has a strict policy that at least now RNA based vaccine is not easy to get approved. It's not easy to approve. And the future generation for the RNA based vaccine is for the cancer and the malaria vaccine and the HIV vaccine. These are the untreatable diseases they are taking over. But if they have some data that the RNA that they are using in the vaccine is not causing any symptoms or pathological sequences or anything, it can get approved. We don't know it. But for now, I think it's very hard for them to go into the public streamline. At least the upcoming government has clearly stated that it is without proper investigation, they may not allow the RNA-based vaccine. Yes.
Said like it is integrated into the end, then why does we need the booster for COVID and why does the title goes down?
Oh, yeah. So basically, when it gets incorporated, it produces the memory cells. So the booster doses every time you get, your body is learning it. So say for example, I'll compare with the two toxins. One is tetanus toxin, or with the influenza toxin. These two are same proteins, but the potency of tetanus is so high that once you get the vaccine at the age of 5 years for 3 times, that's enough. But for influenza, because it's changing its sequence, we have to get the vaccine every year. So that's based on its potency and the type of virus. So you have to, even though you have memory for influenza or the flu virus for the last year, this year again they recommend to go and get vaccine, because the protein is every time it is changing. It's epitopes or the structure of the protein.
Like whatever, like sequence, like whatever you try to give, it should be there, right? Booster dose has a modified or new virus, but like the old should be there, right?
I think it depends on the ability of the immune system to produce. The immune system has the capacity to increase its threshold to certain level, and then it reaches to the maximum, irrespective of that. And again, it is multifactorial. The age and the ethnicity, the environment, the people who get vaccine in Bangladesh or India, Pakistan, the amount of antibody generation is totally different from people that you get in US or Europe, because in those countries you have exposure so much to microbial niche. So your immune system is very hot. When you give a small dose of any other particle, it produces a huge amount in the Eastern countries. But here, the atmosphere or the nature, the microbial niche is very less compared to Eastern countries. So you have to get 3-4 times booster dose, because your system is not exposed and it's not too active or something like that.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.